Gabe, just go with the flow. I actually got so busy chatting, I forgot to tell you any of the admin or how the call works. But hello, gorgeous people. It is so good to see you all. We're in a Valentine's Day theme. I've been told by a very good source that this is the right month. And we're ready to get going. We've got a really exciting, interesting conversation ready to go. I've got your favorite regular resident guest, Jeff Giel, and I did confess we've got so many people coming. It's going to be a few minutes, so I'll run through a tiny bit of admin for you guys. Please, please, please. I normally say quirky questions only, but I'm going to be delving into the audiobook world from the publisher side. And I know that we pay lip service to that all the time, but this time I really mean it. It's occurred to me that most of us spend most of the day sitting by ourselves in a booth talking to ourselves, to each other. That's how bad it is. Talking to ourselves. And I know personally, I have ideas of what the publishers are thinking when you send reach outs, what the publishers are thinking when you ask too many questions or not enough questions. And I know that we all go through those rabbit holes through working with the publishers. And let's just ask them what they're thinking. But first, we have Gabe Dyson. And you guys, so there, no holds barred, ask the questions. There are going to be a lot of people on this call, and I will filter them throughout the call. But don't worry, it doesn't have to be a quirky question. If you've ever had a moment where you thought, well, I sent this to a publisher, should I have, or do they think I'm crazy, or ask it here. This is a safe place. I don't pay attention to the caps for questions anymore, so be aware, or tell me in your question. Don't say my name if you don't want me to say your name out loud. Just let's avoid any accidents here if you give away like the family secrets. So we all know Jeff. Everyone loves Jeff. We don't know Gabe so well. Gabe is with Scribe. And Gabe, you know how you get on these calls and we ask, the first kind of normal questions and everything, like, how did you get into this line of work? So can you please tell us what 10-year-old Gabe was like, what you were thinking? What were you, a live for the moment kind of guy out kicking the football around, or were you planning tell us about Gabe?
So 10-year-old Gabe that's an awesome year, because this whole thing where I am now starts at age 10.
Yeah.
I was 10 years old. I thought, and I discovered the band Green Day and decided that I wanted to play guitar more than anything in the world. Like, this is the thing I wanted more than anything. And my uncle had a Fender Strat, and whenever like he would be in town or something, he'd always bring it with him, and I'd always want to play it. So my mom, for my birthday, ended up getting me a guitar, and I kind of just took to it. It was like one of those things where I was one of those kids who slept with their guitar all through like growing up.
And your mom encouraged you. See, that's a big thing.
Yeah, my family really encouraged me. I'd been singing since I was a little kid. My grandfather was a church pastor and put me in choir, so I've been singing since I was like 4.
Were there like the belting music, like the real?
Yeah, and so like I grew up with music. Like, music's been my life. We moved to here in Austin, when I was like 13, 14 years old. My uncle, who got me playing guitar in the first place, lived here, and he had a home studio in his upstairs in his house. I'm like a kid. Right. And he would just let me come over and mess with his console and his computer. He had a fully loaded like computer, and would just let me track my music. And so he taught me how to engineer at like age like 14. And I took those skills and promptly used them to run sound for punk rock shows.
Okay, I get why you and Jeff are good friends now. That's
but
so were you in like the high school band as well? Or were you
I was in bands in high school. I did jazz band. And then when I went to college, I ended up getting a guitar scholarship at Bridgewater College up in Harrisonburg. I was playing music there. And I was there for guitar and voice. studied music for 5 years because I dawdled for 1 year. And
So were you a punk
yeah,
rocker?
yeah. I was in. So the cool thing is, like, right after I got out of college, when I was in college, I started a band with a bunch of my friends when I was 19. And then we ended up getting signed to a record label and like touring
Oh, that's so
nationally. And
good.
I
I
did that for a
used to
really
hang
long
out with
time.
punk rockers, but I've never really fit in.
I used to have shoulder length Smurf blue hair. You can find pictures of me like this on the internet. And yeah, I did that for the entirety of my 20s into my 30s. I ended up kind of just getting tired of being on the road, and I roundabout ended up working for a print company in Virginia. Did that for a while, and then we moved. Me and my fiance moved back to Texas.
Oh, wait,
And
how old are you at this point then?
at this point, I'm 32. I am
Okay,
32, 33 years old.
we need to go back a little bit
Okay.
because you were very, very sure at 10 years old what you wanted to do.
Yes.
And then didn't you have any dark nights of the soul? Did you ever have any like doubts or I'm not going to make it or this isn't going the way? Or were you just one of those people that was like, all fire ahead, I'm going to do this?
I am the very definition of a paper tiger. Like I seem like I'm really, really like going all in on this kind of this kind of thing, but a lot of the time there's always doubt. There's
Yeah.
always doubt in this kind of thing, but it's like forge ahead, even if you're doubting. That's kind of my thing.
But I'm embarrassed to say that I've heard the term. I literally don't know what a paper tiger is. Am I going to
It's
embarrass? I'll edit this part out if it's something really obvious that I should know.
a paper tiger is all bark no bite. It's like saying that
Oh,
it seems like you're the most confident person in the world and you have that, I don't have any doubt, but there's always doubt in there.
right.
And it's just like it's a lot of it is I'm faking it to make it, if that makes
Got it.
sense.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you're married, you're madly in love, your career is full blast, you're in your 30s, right?
Yeah, I'm in my 30s, yeah.
And then
And
what?
I ended up picking up a job. So I was working for a print company. I was mixing live shows at a venue like on the side. And when we moved here, a publishing company needed somebody who did the opposite of what my job was, somebody who could communicate with printers and knew how to speak that language. They picked me up. I did that for about a year, and then they added me. They needed somebody who understood audio to take over their audiobook department.
But did it
And
feel weird, the printer job? Did that feel weird after years of doing the other stuff?
no, because what's funny is like I got into that from doing graphic design work for my band. So like I was doing a lot of like photoshopping, design work on the side anyway. So when I hopped into working printing, it was a language I kind of already spoke. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's weird how things kind of work their way back around because I found myself back in audio through publishing. And then I left that company to join Scribe at the end of last year, not this past 2022, but 2021. And I started back in working in book production. And then I talked to Jeff and asked if they needed more people in audiobook land. And at the end of last year, Jeff took me in, and now I'm here.
Okay, so a couple of things strike me. First of all, it always shocks me how everyone listening to that story, doesn't that sound like it was just like meant to be? Like that's like a complete logical progression, a life well lived, a dream started off, and this is where you end up, and you went from strength to strength. And isn't it funny how, and you say, while you're doing it, it doesn't feel like it. Like if only we could feel in the moment that things are falling into place nicely and we're on the way to exactly where we need to be. But it never feels like it always feels like you're about to screw up if you take one wrong step. But you get into Scribe and we're about to go full circle because now we're going to get to I'm really interested in the nitty gritty about how it feels. And it's great that we have both of you here because you started recently enough. I mean, you've been there a while now, but you started recently enough that you probably remember, but you've had a good grounding in the industry by that point. but were there nerves? Was there a learning curve when you went into the job that you're doing now? What did your job consist of when you very first started? The actual day-to-day, this is what I do.
Oh, starting with audiobook here at Scribe.
Yeah.
A lot of that was, I'm trying to think here. Jeff really started me with the basic rundown of how this works. And like the big part of that was, the kind of just the nitty gritty things of, okay, here's a manuscript that's coming through that's been done, like the book is done. And here's how we prep that manuscript into going out for auditions or going into positron for pronunciation research, getting all the credits and stuff set up, getting sides ready for auditions. And then really he kind of just, once we got that going and showed me the process of, okay, we're going to listen for certain things based off of what the author's needs are for, for this narration, sending out sides, getting that casting, and then, going through that process as well. And that's really like been setting me up for the day-to-day process. And we slowly add more and more things to the process till I get more and more comfortable.
And Jeff's a good person, and that's a good time to bring Jeff in here, because Jeff, with your experience, not just with Scribe. Say something really quickly, Jeff, so I can pull you up on the screen.
Oh, I'm saying things.
There you go.
It's great to be here,
Wonderful.
Daniela.
So your process, so with Scribe, so you've probably got the whole onboarding and everything down pat. So this is the perfect time to talk about the daily. For instance, I didn't realize you guys did the pronunciation research before even getting the narrator. I thought that was after.
No, those are the things that sort of happen at the same time. And there's a couple of reasons for that, basically. When I first came to Scribe, we'd do auditions, we'd put audition requests out, and then I'd get started with the pronunciation research, and we'd send the auditions to the author for review, and then I'd finish the pronunciation research, and we'd send that to the author, and then the author would pick the narrator, but then time would lapse. They wouldn't review the pronunciation research, and we can't start recording until they sign off on it for obvious reasons.
Right.
So we kept hitting this wall where a narrator would have been cast in a book ready to record, and I'm putting the brakes on the process saying, no, the author needs to review. And then 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by, 4 weeks go by. Now the narrator is booked up for the next 5 months. And we kept getting in that sort of situation. So we do the pronunciation research at the same time that we're doing casting, and both go together. The auditions will go to the author with the pronunciation research.
So they can get back to you with both at the same time.
Exactly.
Perfect. What about when you disagree with the writer?
What do you mean?
What about when you really, really, really like this and this audition, and the writer really, really, really likes
somebody
that
else.
Audition?
There's always a favorite. When I'm casting, there's always like, I'll listen to the auditions, and there is always like, this is good. Oh, this is the one. This is the one that's going to get it. Yeah. And sometimes I don't keep stats to see how often I'm right, but there's no argument. It's my job is to present options that fit, or our job is to present options that fit what the author is asking for. The author holds the rights. It's the author's call, and I'm here to serve the author, or we're here to serve the author. We're not here to fight with the author over who's a better narrator. Sometimes we pick it and we're like, oh yeah, okay, we're on the same page with the author. And other times it's like, oh, well, didn't get that one right.
So some publishing companies, I don't know if Scribe does this, so you might not be able to speak to it, but some publishing companies won't ask for some jobs, they'll say, do you want me to submit you? But they don't necessarily need an audition. Do you guys ever do that? Do you always ask for an audition?
I mean, we'll invite narrators onto our roster so that they're there. But when we're casting projects, we'll always ask for an audition.
Because I'm always curious what they submit when they say, do you want us to submit you? But then they don't want an audition. I'm always curious, what are they looking at? Are they going to send them to your website? And that brings us, because before this talk, we were talking about websites, and we're talking about what you guys look at when you get And I'm also curious, after we talk about this bit, I also am curious to ask Gabe also how fast he started getting emails from narrators, because I'd love to hear. It's not just me. This isn't a Daniela thing. This is every narrator. Your nerves are kind of taut as an actor, as a narrator, any kind of creative when you submit things. So it's a thing that we do. We submit like every few months, catch-ups, follow-ups, and everyone's always looking for the magic answer, and there isn't one because everyone's different and every publisher is different. But I think it would be so helpful if we literally could put ourselves in the shoes of you guys, like not what you're looking for. You can't speak to that. Everything's different at all times. But like when letters come in, emails come in, how much time do you have to pay attention to it? When do you get it? You guys, you're working in the office, aren't you?
We're hybrid. So some days we're in the office, some days we're at home. Today we're both in the office.
So you get a bunch of emails and check them at like 2:00 when you have time, that kind of thing. I'd love to humanize your side of it so that the next time these 21 narrators are sending their, every 3-month email, they kind of picture you guys, not someone going, oh God, I don't, you know what I mean? Not a cold robotic publisher that's going to like give them life or take it away every time they send a message, but like, oh, here's Jeff, it's his 2:00 break, this is when he's checking his emails, kind of thing. Maybe don't give us specific times because you will end up with 6,000 emails at 2:00. But so can you put us in your shoes, like how your day is that way? What place does seeing those emails have in your daily routine, time-wise and effort-wise and focus?
I think Gabe and I'll have different answers to this question. But basically, up until very recently, I was like same day response, or sometimes a response right away. Just depended on what I was doing at the moment. But the volume has picked up a little bit. So now there is a time and day on my calendar, and that's when I handle that stuff. I drop those sorts of emails in a folder in my inbox, and then I get to them on that day at that time, which you told me not to say when it is, so I'm not going to say
seriously. You do. I mean, 60,000 people eventually, hopefully, will watch this video. I mean, I know you're friendly, but even you don't want that level. But Kim, that goes along with it. Kim says, how do we make your job easier?
How do you make my job easier?
Yeah. Are there things that we do without realizing it that are sometimes like, oh God, this is increasing my workload?
Ask questions.
Yeah, that was going to be my thing too. Yeah, ask questions.
Like what kind of questions? Like what questions?
If you're cast in a job with us and you have a question about a pronunciation, ask it. If you have a question about how you should narrate something, ask it. If you any question, we don't want narrators to feel alone out there. If you're working with us, you're part of Scribe. We value people. We're going to take care of you. And ultimately, it's all like we're all working in service of creating this phenomenal product for an author. So you don't want to make a decision that, if you're not sure about the pronunciation and you pick the wrong pronunciation and that word shows up 500 times in a book, like happened yesterday. You don't want to do that. And I was talking to Gabe about that this morning because, the narrator's going to own that, right? And we actually gave that pronunciation in the pronunciation research. So the narrator's going to own that, and they're going to record the pickups, and that's part of the game, right?
But you guys are having to edit those pickups in, and that is torturous.
Exactly. Well, it's not. Gabe and I aren't doing the editing, but yeah, there is a post team. Somebody's going to edit in those 500 pickups. Somebody's going to spot check those 500 pickups, and the way post-production gets paid in the audiobook industry, there's not extra money for that. It's part of their package. So everybody sort of has to come to the table prepared to do the best work that they can, because the people down the line are going to suffer if a mistake is made.
So you'd rather get the nitpicky emails in the beginning.
Absolutely.
100%. Like Bob Vila said it best, measure twice, cut once. Like you only get the chance to cut it one time. Like you're cutting something here. Like it's best to just ask. If you're in doubt of anything, just ask. If you're doubting the delivery of a line, you're like, oh, how do you think the author would want this? Just ask. Because we can even ask the author. Like it's with us specifically with Scribe, we try to do a really good job of having less barriers between getting an answer and try to get that as quickly as we possibly can from you, because you're kind of working in tandem with the author to deliver their message in the first place. So it's like, if you've got a question, just ask. I mean, we're probably there. You have a 99.9% chance we're not going to say no. We're not going to get an answer to you. Like we'll do our best to get an answer for you, no matter what the question is.
I think that's the fear. It's because I literally right before this call, I had somebody reach out and type this like weird scientific formula. And they said, do you know how to pronounce this? And I'm like, you're kidding, right? What is it? And they were like, well, I guess I'll have to ask the publisher. And we did have that and I was like, ooh, can you check on Facebook first? Maybe one of the other narrators, because that's your first instinct, because you don't want to send a million.
But you're used to doing your own
research.
No.
You'd rather
you can't trust the internet.
You can't trust the internet. Otherwise, that situation Jeff just mentioned, that's what happens. You can't trust the internet.
Yeah. That's really, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what about websites? What about how much we show you affects whether you want to book us or see us as professionals? What if, because I see some of the really big narrators don't have any websites at all. If anyone can reach Jeff Harding out there, please. I really want him on a call, and he's impossible to get a hold of. A lot of the big narrators don't have that. How much is that part of our job?
Send me an email, Jeff Harding. Remind me. I'll make magic happen for you. I'm good like that.
Really? Oh, yes, because I'd love to interview him. He's like my all-time favorite male thriller narrator on the face of the earth.
I am reasonably confident I can find an email address for him. I can't promise it, but I'm reasonable. So anyway, just remind me, because I'm not going to remember things and I got nothing to write it down with.
Okay, yes, believe me, I will remind you.
Okay. So you're asking about websites and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I never look at websites if there's because when the narrators send the updates, whatever they are, monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, a lot of times they say, oh, I put some new samples up, or I redesigned my site, and I want to see what's going on there. So I'll poke around on the site. I'll listen to some samples. But when it comes to casting, generally speaking, I'm not going to a narrator's website unless the author asks for someone that isn't already on our roster. I'm going to our roster, and we don't see narrators' websites on our roster. We don't see narrators branding on our roster. And I'd say that, like, I go as far as like, I drop the filters to find what I'm looking for, and then I'm just listening to the clips from what the database spits out after the filter. I'm not looking at headshots. I'm not looking at. Sometimes I'll look at the about the narrator or any notes they made if the author is asking for like really specific, like, do you have, this is a financial advising book. Do you have experience in the financial advising industry? I'll look for something like that. But yeah, I'm not right. It's been always something that I wondered about, why headshots are required in audiobooks. Like this is a job of the voice. It's nice to see people. It's nice to get to know people, but like the headshot has no place really when it comes down to the audiobook. The consumer isn't going to see your headshot unless they're like, oh, I like this narrator, I want to find out more about them. Then they're going to go and find your website.
So what about samples? So if you get new samples and say, oh, hey, Jeff, I've got these brand new samples, do you then add them to your clips on your roster so that the next time you look up clips, you hear them? Or do you have a note in your mind? Or do you just think, okay, yeah, whatever, you sound the same?
I don't add them myself. I send them a link where they can go and update their profile on our roster.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Any narrator on our roster can go and tweak things on their profile as often as they want.
Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, so, and you said that Gabe has a different outlook on the getting narrator reach outs. And so you have a specific time once a week that you check your emails for that. Gabe, what about you?
I've been getting, what's been interesting is I don't get a lot of emails. I get a ton of LinkedIn requests. Like that's been something that since I've taken on this position at Scribe, my LinkedIn's kind of exploded. And so like what I'll do a lot of the time is if I got somebody that's a new, narrator on LinkedIn, I'll go check it out and see, what they're up to, or I'll see, if they're in our database where most of them are. But that's been my experience so far.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting. So you guys work together. Is it like when I was in the corporate office when you've got like a day in the job? Is it like Gabe, Jeff, get your coffee and your espresso in the morning, and then you meet each other at the coffee machine at 10 o'clock, and then somebody has a birthday and there's a cake? Is it that kind of thing? Like,
Scribe is a fun company.
It's a very fun company. Our office is an old brewery.
oh, now see that you never meant that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's well,
It's
except obviously
I
the booze isn't there anymore.
when I'm in office, I literally face Jeff. Like we face each other, our
Yeah.
desks are in front of each other.
Is there like a, oh hey, what about so and so for this job? Oh, what about so and so? Is there, so if one of us like really screwed up, I never did this obviously, but if one of us ever do really screw up and do something ridiculous, you guys would be laughing about it in the office, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Note, guys. um yeah, it did occur to me because I am a little too much on the other side. Like I tend to send spreadsheet clips. Can I just double check that this is the exact file convention naming that you want, and I always think, oh, crazy woman coming. It did occur to me, we all have different ways of working. And I think we all are a tiny bit socially inept because we sit in the booth talking to ourselves all day, every day. So how do you communicate if you do get,
It may be part of how we set things up at Scribe. So when we're talking to our authors, when they sign on for an audiobook with us, we have a call with them. We run them through the process of what it's going to look like. And obviously part of that talk covers narration. And one of the things we explain that we make very clear that when you choose a narrator, you're signing over creative freedom. They're going to interpret their book a way different than you interpret it or I interpret it. And that's part of hiring a narrator. But with that, we say, if there's a section of your book that you want performed in a certain way, like there's a section or two here or there that are carry more weight than the other sections, and you're really adamant about how they're performed, then we'll take that into account. I'll schedule a call between the author and the narrator before recording starts, and the author and narrator can talk about it. I'm generally not even involved in that call, but they talk about it, and it resolves. I haven't really been in a spot where a narrator is sending a tremendous amount of questions about this, that, or the other thing. We trust the narrators we work with. You're professionals, you know what you're doing.
that's really good to hear. That's really good to hear, because I think we worry. I actually know we worry, not just me. I know a lot of people worry because of the amount of questions that are posted in groups. Should I ask this? Should I ask that? And that's why people go to the internet first, because they don't want to be seen as not knowing what they're doing. Nobody wants to look like they haven't reached the bar. So they, Lisa
Does anybody really know what they're doing?
Yeah, I know. See, that's the thing. Lisa wants to know, are y'all staring at each other right now? Did I do the accent right?
We're in separate rooms in the same office.
So, okay, so now I want to go work at Scribe. Okay, so website. So you're in the office most of the day. What's the bulk of your day taken up with then? Or is it broken up mostly evenly? Do you guys do mostly, because you manage a lot of people, don't you, in your position, Jeff?
No, it's we have a small audiobook department. it's really just me and Gabe in the department. We have 13 or 14 freelancers on our post team. So it's not really, there's nobody that's like super new on the post team that's still getting onboarded or still getting familiar with how we work. It's a well-oiled machine, I think we could say. We're moving along pretty easily.
So who gets the books? Whose job is that, to bring the books into Scribe?
Not mine and not Gabe's.
No,
So
that
is it
comes
like a
way,
different
way.
department in a different building or something?
Same building, different department.
Okay, cool. So, okay, so that's interesting. So they look for the books, then they notify you and say, we have 6 books. Do you have company meetings like once a week? Or tell me if I'm asking questions I shouldn't be asking, though, because I'm just curious.
There are constant company meetings, but they don't generally involve the audiobook department.
Yeah. It's funny because I was in book production before this, and I was handling, copy editing, line editing, that kind of thing, proofreading, then all the way through, getting going to the finish line of the book production process. And I had probably like 5 times more meetings than I ever have had since switching over to the audiobook department.
That's good, though. That's
yeah.
good, because meetings in general aren't, most of them don't need to happen.
Yeah.
Long story short, so you work with a lot of narrators, and a lot of them have been coming to Scribe to see the office. I'm so jealous. I see the pictures on social media. I want to go hang out, and I know the perfect outfit I could wear too. And it's like, seriously, I want to go and have coffee and be in Texas and wear a cowboy hat. Off the subject,
I don't know what to say about all that. You are very welcome. It would be great to have you here in Texas. It would be great to have a coffee with you. It'd be great to hang out. If anybody is in town, let us know. We'll go out for coffee, vegan tacos. We'll hang.
They have vegan tacos?
Greatest vegan tacos on the planet.
What are they made of? Oh, see,
vegan
okay,
things.
I'm getting off the subject a tiny bit. Okay, so what do you, and I'm going to ask each of you this, and Gabe will have an advantage because he gets to get asked second, so he'll learn from your mistakes. What is your biggest challenge or frustration, or something that drives you crazy or annoys you, or that if you could change in your job, you would?
For me, so there's 2 types of authors that we work with. Scribe authors sort of go through a different process. These are the authors that we're help writing their book, publish their book, market the book. They go through a different process on their way to audiobooks than outside authors that come to us looking for audiobook production. With the outside authors coming to us to look for audiobook production, they'll speak to me or Gabe directly. But with the Scribe authors, they speak to somebody else on our team. So sometimes there are communication lags in either direction because we don't have a direct, we're not face to face with those authors.
Right. So that must be frustrating.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can get face to face with them? Can they? No. Huh?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's been a few cases where we have hopped on a call just to work things out because the author had a ton of questions and the folk on our team, the experience was here in audiobooks where we were able to answer the questions. So there's been a few cases where, but I think overall it's just a slow change. You got to remember, audiobooks, like Scribe has been around for 7 years, 8 years, something like that. Audiobooks have been around since September 2021 inside of Scribe. So we're still a baby in what is overall this company that's approaching adolescence, essentially, where, it's how things are today are not going to be how they are a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now.
But the writers that work with you love you. I can say that because you guys have a very good reputation amongst writers. And I think that the respect you afford them will pay dividends in the future.
I think that just comes down to the nature of Scribe at its core. People are our number one value, and It's not just people in this building. It's not just narrators. It's not just writers. It's like, if you are a person, we value you. So authors kind of, they are people. So they get that same respect. They get the same value. We treat people good here.
Yeah, it's a good way forward. Gabe, frustration, change, nothing's ever perfect. What would you?
I'd actually, it's the same thing. It's funny he said that, because it's moving the ball forward, being able to move the ball forward, not being able to do that because of like a communication lag and delay can be sometimes really frustrating. But it's always for the benefit of the book. Like, if there's communication happening at all, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Even if there's lag there. So it's better than, a stonewall situation where you're not getting anything. It's like, even if there's a lag in communication, that's still communication,
Yep. Yeah. Communication is pretty much key to everything, isn't it? And I think these days, with everything digitized and digital, I mean, communication is kind of taking a hit. There's too much what we see. What is it? We're consuming too much and we're creating less. Right.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so narrators love you, writers love you, you guys love each other. Great job. What have you learned anything since you started with Scribe, Gabe, that you can look back on and go, wow, that was a learning curve? Because you were well grounded and experienced before starting. So, but every job changes you.
This company treats you like an adult. Which, I was coming from another publishing firm before coming here. I was always kind of it always felt like a toddler. I always felt like a toddler on a leash at the mall, where it's like, I'm allowed to run around, but don't touch anything. And that's not how I feel here. How I feel here is, I like the level of autonomy that I have. It's one of those things where, if I have a studio in my apartment, and it's like, if I'm not coming into the office, I have the freedom of, I'll just let Jeff know, hey, is it essential if I come in? If not, I'm going to go make myself an espresso and sit in my walk-in closet and work there. And like, but I like that, where it's like, I don't have somebody looking over your shoulder. The other side of that, though, is you have to be on your toes. You have to be able to be on it and prove that you're on it, because you're given that level of autonomy. So it's like, here's some freedom. Don't get hit by a car.
But you find that you have, not only do you have that level of autonomy, but you also have the level of the feeling of responsibility.
Yes.
So because of that, you care more, because you're actually participating. I remember my old corporate job. I had one day a week I worked from home. And they only gave that to me begrudgingly, like really begrudgingly, because they made a mistake and promised it. And then that boss left, and like the other guy couldn't kind of take it away. So I had one day a week I worked from home, and I did more in that one day than I did in all the 4 other days, because of said meetings and things like that. And it wasn't lack of communicating. I was literally emailing and calling and talking to the team a lot. But I think that's why I love freelancing so much, because I have clients. I don't have bosses. I think I might at this point be unemployable at a normal job. Because that muscle that you use to not say what you really think at times. I don't have it anymore.
You have no more brain to mouth filter.
I love that, Daniela. I love that.
That's wonderful.
And it's such a freedom. Isn't it great? A great difference. What Gabe was saying to me is the ultimate in a good job. I mean, it's no difference if you're going into an office or into your booth. Gabe knows that Gabe's responsible for his work at the end of the day. So guess what? He gets to take pride in it. You know. So yeah, I love that. I really love that. Might explain the special spark Scribe has. Somebody wants to know, who is that? Kate Coventry wants to know, how's the studio? Is reconstruction finished? And she's sure it's stunning.
Kate is someone that came to Austin and had vegan tacos, which was a wonderful day. How's the studio? So studio is so close to being done, so close.
Very close.
We have gear in there, we have equipment in there. There's a few things that the contractors need to fix before we really get rolling. But the hope is like within the next 2 weeks, we should be rolling.
But I did see a picture of somebody visiting you at Scribe, and I got an impression of them sitting around with like what looked like delicious coffee.
We have delicious coffee here.
Yeah, I want to go to Texas, wear cowboy boots, a cowboy hat, and have delicious coffee and meet Gabe and Jeff. Yeah, and I think, Jeff, of everyone, you're the king of that. You're the king of developing personal relationships with people, but also it being professional, but never the two clashing. You're the king. And I can't think of anyone better. That's why everyone goes crazy when I have you on one of these calls, because everyone feels like they're your best friend. I remember the first call we had, I had a bunch of people emailing me for the link. Gabe, you're going to laugh at this. And I think I told you this before. Emailing me for the link, and they were like, oh, I know Jeff personally. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. No, really, we're friends. Oh, okay. But like 10 people.
I think I don't know. What am I trying to say here?
Yeah, Diane, wait, what? He's not my best friend? That's what it was.
I think it has to do, right? Part of it is personality. I love people. I love connecting with people. But it's also where I came up from in this industry. I didn't come up in audiobooks in a corporate environment. I came up in a mom and pop shop that treated everyone like family and had a job for a number of years where one of my responsibilities was to hug everybody that walked through the door, assuming they would accept a hug.
Wait, did you tell me this before? I don't remember.
Yeah, no, I told you this before. That was something I did at Dion Audio. Like I would literally hug people that came through the door.
Yes, you told me the Dion.
Now, not everybody is going to be the kind of person that vibes with that. You can't just put. Not everybody is going to want to be the person giving hugs at the door, but some people vibe with that, right? That's who I am. So if I came up in a more corporate environment, obviously you're not doing that at maybe some of the big 5 publishing houses, because it gets weird if somebody just hanging out by the door giving out hugs. I don't know, maybe they did. When I walked into the big 5 publishing houses, nobody gave me a hug. That's what I'm really saying here. And I've been to all of them. I've been to PRH, I've been to Macmillan, I've been to literally no hugs. Got plenty of handshakes, but no hugs.
Okay. I can see you at APAC now. Are you guys going to APAC?
No.
So is Gabe a hugger too? Are you the same, Gabe?
I mean, I like giving people hugs. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story that kind of is, I guess, pertinent here. It's so like the band I was in, I was touring for ages. We'd been a band for maybe like 4 years. I had just graduated college. A bunch of the guys were all the same age. A couple of the other guys graduated college. And we had done our first like tour, like actual tour, out of a van, no money.
I wanted to be a punk rocker so badly. I'm so jealous.
And you're doing this for no money. Like you're making like $100 from the door, and you're working a job just so you can save money to live out of a van and sleep in Walmart parking lots and do this whole thing. And like, so we played this show in the middle of nowhere in Maryland. In Leonardtown, Maryland.
Kim wants to know the name of the band.
We were called Audio Strobe Light. We were on Little Heart Records. But I played this show in the middle of nowhere in Leonardtown, Maryland. There's maybe 20 people there. And we put on a show. It's like whether there's 100 people or 10 or whatever, you put on the same show. And this band from from Knoxville, Tennessee, called On My Honor, was there, and we really liked their set. They were on tour. They've been doing it a little longer than we had been. And we became friends with those guys. We're just like, hey, we should exchange numbers sometimes, yada, yada, yada. These things happen. So a year later, year goes by, and we play Cornerstone Festival in Southern Illinois, and we're camped out. It's a camping festival, and out of nowhere, the singer of the band just pops out. We're just grabbing lunch, and we run into him. It's like, we didn't know you were playing there. They moved their whole camp to camp with us, and we spent the week with them. So the following summer, we go on a van tour with them for 2 weeks, and we had a blast for it. They told us they just got signed with a record label, and their record was going to come out later in the year, and they wanted us to support that tour. Came time for us to be writing and recording our first like real record. And the label, they vouched for us and pitched us to their label. And we ended up signing with them. And that was the first time that anybody ever like vouched for us and gave us a chance and backed us. And we actually got financial backing for that. And then after that, it was like, I got to open up for like all of my favorite bands. Like I got to open up for my favorite band, Coheed and Cambria, at one point. And it's like, all of this was the result of us just making friends with something. It was somebody in a group of people with no stakes. It was a situation where we had no stakes in the situation. We were just playing in front of 20 people. We were just 20-year-old kids just trying to have fun. And they were doing the same thing. And it didn't become us asking them to pitch us for that label spot. They offered.
Okay, so you've put your finger, I think you've answered something that I couldn't work out in my mind. You know how I said, Jeff, that like people were like, get publishers on the calls, and I would get publishers on the calls, and then I'd think, oh, they're my friend, and then I'd like forget to literally reach out to do the reach outs. And I think what you said right there is key to it, is the motivation. I don't get the publishers on the call because I'm asking for anything. I get them on the call because it's great crack talking to Jeff for an hour, and oh yeah, there's an audience. Hi guys. But so Jeff, you know what I mean? It's like, I get them on the call because it's fun.
Yeah.
And I love hearing about their lives but that's smart. And I never realized it. That doesn't negate the then reaching out for work. Your real motive isn't to get the work. And I'm not just talking about me and my calls, you guys. I haven't taken this offline, just the Daniela show. This works for everything. When you're sending chocolates or whatever people send to people, or you're meeting them at APAC and you're going out for drinks with them, you're not doing it to get work. You're doing it because they're really nice people and you want to have a good laugh. That makes sense. And then if something good comes of it, it's not because you were asking for it, it's because you want to see. To me, I always thought, well, I'm not asking for it, so don't ask for it, just be their friend. But it doesn't hurt to then do business because everyone understands it. And you didn't ask those guys, they offered, didn't they?
Yeah. And and what I guess what I'm saying here is that it's the relationships that you build sometimes are enough. And it's not necessarily asking for that thing isn't necessarily, I could have asked. That's the thing. I felt comfortable because I was friends with those guys. Like the guy we ran into that festival, like before they even offered, I'd slept on his couch. I'd hung out with his family.
Yeah.
I'd shot guns in his backyard because they lived in the middle of nowhere in Knoxville, Tennessee. We were so close to those guys that I would have felt comfortable asking, but but I didn't become friends with them because I was expecting to gain anything out of it,
And you're right. Having Jeff as a friend is better than having one book that I can get some, you know what I mean? It's like, that's the reward in itself. So I guess I'm not going to APAC, but I am planning my outfit for 2025 in case anyone else is going. But I guess if you're going, because everyone's off to APAC, a lot of people are right now. And there's a lot of nervousness and a lot of talk in the online groups. And they're like, how do you network? And a lot of people, they do this thing where they get all the publishers' information and pictures of the publishers. And so they know who everyone is, and they find out, they have 2 dogs, they have a kid, and that's very, very smart. I have the attention span of a fly. I'd completely forgotten you guys were under construction. So like, I'm not going to remember how many dogs, you know what I mean? But I'll remember if you had nightmares when you were 8. But they go with their lists prepared, and I think maybe just keep that in mind. Maybe don't go looking for how many publishers you can get. Maybe go looking for how many really cool friends you can make. And that's better than the publishers. Kim remembers Jeff's bike riding story. I remember Jeff jumping out of the plane. See, I remember the jumping out of the plane. My mouth's still hanging on the floor for that. Oh, we've got Gabe. What's the most daring thing you've ever done?
Oh, wow. Daring thing I've ever done? I don't even know.
Or the most scared you've ever been?
Oh, I could tell you the most scared I've ever been. This is another band story. My band, while I was still in college, got the opportunity to play for, we opened for Taking Back Sunday, who were like one of my favorite bands at the time. And it was like a Christmas show, and it was sold out. It had been sold out for weeks. And it was the first time that we'd ever played like a sold out show in front of like 2,000 people.
Wow.
And we had all agreed we weren't going to look at the crowd. We had all agreed, we were just like, don't look at the crowd. We're not coming from backstage until it's like time to play. And I remember us doing the intro and then the house lights coming up and the life leaving my body in that moment. Where it was like, oh no.
The ultimate stage fright.
Yeah, but you're in it. And so it's like it went from fear to adrenaline. Like it was this crazy rebound where it was like, oh no, let's do this. And it was just like ramped up from there,
But after shows,
it's the strangest feeling.
Is that why, like, how like the big bands and rock stars and everything, and you always picture them like after parties and going crazy? Is that a lot of adrenaline? Because Jeff, you were in band too. So do you guys get like an adrenaline hit during the show and then afterwards feel really frazzled and you can't come down and go to sleep for like 6 hours or something? Can you tell that I didn't have a really cool life and I'm living vicariously through you guys?
I'm going to let Gabe field that one because the bands I played in never achieved anything close to what Gabe has achieved as a musician.
But the audience doesn't matter, does it? You're still performing. You still have to have had the adrenaline.
You get a rush for sure when you're on stage. There's no question about that. After the show, I don't know. At that time in my life, I was drinking way more than I should have. So I could not drink before because I do not function well with any amount of alcohol in my system. But after the show, for sure, we'd start knocking back beers and then I would do stupid things. I don't drink anymore, so I haven't played since I stopped drinking. So I don't even know what would happen after a show at this point. I'd probably just go home and go to sleep.
I wonder if the drinking is because of that. I know it's also because they're cool rockers, but I'm wondering if the drinking part of that is to come down from the adrenaline.
I think you're giving too much credit there, Daniela.
Yeah, no, I don't really drink anymore either. Like, especially I can't drink before playing a show. I've never been that kind of person. Like I get lazy fingers. I don't know if you can tell, I have very stubby hands for a guitar player. It doesn't make sense. I have very stubby fingers. So they just stop. Like one beer, doesn't work. But I don't drink anymore really. And I don't know. I get a rush from stage and I'm done. And I'm like, I want to take a nap. Like,
really? You can.
I'll say when things got really serious, when like I was touring full time, there were a couple guys in my band who were like really, really hardcore partiers. And me, the singer of our band, and another guy typically were the guys who would always be like, all right, we're hanging out and having like a beer, and then I'm going to bed. Like, I'm done. Like, I'll go shake hands, talk to people, and then I'm going to sleep. Like, that's my night.
But see, that's weird because I did during my only brief time in my life when I was on a Get Fit craze. I went a little bit nuts, all or nothing, and I did Kung Fu, White Crane Kung Fu 3 nights a week. And then I'd come home and I was wired until like 4 a.m. I could not sleep for my life. So I was probably making myself really unhealthy, but I thought it was so cool. I mean, but even the adrenaline from that was enough to keep you up and keep you wired. I can't imagine going to sleep after being in a band. I'm so living vicariously through them. Sorry, guys, I have gone off onto the Daniela show. Yeah, so much for the let's dissect the day of a publisher. We're talking booze, adrenaline. Next, I'll be asking about like groupies. Let's probably talk about scheduling, reach out letters. We've covered all that. Professional websites, what you'd like us to do more of. So what I need from you guys now to wrap up the evening, the way we always do, Jeff knows what's coming. In 60 years, someone's going to be watching this video. And if you would like them to come away with one thing, even if it's something you wish narrators would know about their work, or you wish they'd understand, or about life, or even a funny joke. I'll let you go first, Gabe. What would you like to leave people with? Words of wisdom.
What is it? I'm trying to get this quote right. In the immortal words of Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus, take risks, make mistakes, get messy. I can't stress enough. You just got to throw yourself in the deep end of the pool and just try things and just go for it and make choices. And that's not just a narration, that's just in life. I've made some really wacky choices in my life and somehow I've ended up here and I can't be happier enough for it. So just do it. Do the thing. If you have a thing you want to do, or if there's a choice you want to make, just do it. Yeah, there's nothing really stopping you.
I like that. Very, very good. Okay, Jeff, how are you going to top that one?
I'm going to roll with Gabe on that one. I think that is wonderful advice. I think that's something that we all got to take to heart. I am going to second that.
And we will be fair. This is your third call, so you had to come up with 3 spates of words of wisdom. So that's more than most people have in a lifetime. So you guys, this has been delightful. I can't believe time has flown so fast. And you were worried there wouldn't be anything left for us to talk about after the first 2, Jeff. But look at this. It's been a pleasure meeting you, Gabe. I think we all now have an idea when we shoot off those letters, which I will remember to start doing again, to the publishers. Now we'll picture them. And I loved especially where Gabe was sitting. You could see the publisher people walking by with their coffee kind of behind Gabe. So now I've got like a total picture of the vibe. So you can imagine your emails landing in the nice, friendly office with people walking around with coffee and Gabe and Jeff staring at each other. And
this is legitimately that's where we sit. So I'm right in front of our desk area right there. So
it's a really beautiful office.
This is
really gorgeous. If I had an office that looked like that, I think I wouldn't mind actually going into work. So yeah, very, very nice. Guys, it's been wonderful. You have been the best, and I'm so grateful for your time. The video will be out in 2 weeks, everyone, and let's thank Jeff and Gabe. This has been wonderful. You guys are fabulous. Bye.
Thanks, Daniela. Always great talking to you. Thank you, everybody.
See you later.
It was great seeing you.
Bye, guys. Bye.